That's the first time also I rode an ambulance. So
Well,
You
it
say
was an
that like it's the most
experience.
amusing thing.
I
Like,
know
I got an ambulance.
fell the wrong way. I was in a stretcher. So yeah.
I would get maybe not so high grades in CL before.
Don't we? I don't think anyone did. I was.
Nobody
Oh my God.
studied the CL, Christian living, for people who don't know what CL is. Hi, Bea. We're back again for 30 questions, and we have another tough girl here. Meggie
Hmm.
Ochoa, our friend from high school. She's, Bea, she's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu champion, world champion.
I know it's amazing. Like the stuff that she's been doing, like teaching self-defense. I just feel like Maggie's always a driven person. Very
Yeah,
excited to chat with her.
super excited. So let's bring in Meggie.
Hi, Maggie.
Hi, Meggie.
Hi.
I see this all the time. I'm such a fan of Rocky films. So it's like, oh my gosh, I want to run like, like what you see in the
Up the steps.
films. Yeah. It's like, you can do it, I can do it. All right. What is the biggest misconception when it comes to martial arts?
Okay, probably one of the biggest misconception is would be you have to be strong to do it.
Hmm.
And it's actually the total opposite. Like,
Okay.
for example, in Jiu-Jitsu, I mentioned it earlier. I think that the focus is on technique rather than strength and power. And you don't even have to be big and strong to do it. Like,
Mhm.
small people sometimes win against big people because they use their technique. And even like for females, sometimes the misconception is, oh, if you're a girl, this is not for you because you're not as strong. It's a contact sport and all that. But I think it's even the reverse
Yeah.
because if you're a girl, it would be better for you to join it. One, because it's gonna teach you self defense, and two, because if you're a girl and you're not as physically strong as the guys you trained with, then you'll be able to develop your technique more. You'll be forced to use your technique because you can't use strength. And
Mm.
with that, you will even grow more in the sport. A lot of the girls I know are more technical than guys because they have to use their technique.
I feel like if I was in a ring with you, Meggie, I'm 5'8". I feel like I won't even last like 2 seconds. I'll be like tapping out na agad. It's like, aray, ayoko na.
Grabe naman.
Never mind that you haven't done any training.
I mean, I can't use strength. I'm not very strong. Wala akong technique. 2 seconds is
Grabe.
pushing it pa nga eh. So, Meggie, you're a world champion in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. What attracted you to the sport?
Okay, so well, I actually started with mixed martial arts first. I started it as a hobby, and then I really wanted to compete in MMA, but I didn't really have opponents my size. A lot would back out when they were my size, so I would have to go through. I'm sorry, I would have to go against bigger opponents, and it's not so safe if they're striking.
Yeah.
I'm small kasi I'm only 5 feet tall.
Wow.
So yeah,
You are 5 feet tall.
I'm only
Okay.
5 feet.
Not
Yeah.
only it's
So sabi nila, it's better for me to get into jiu-jitsu kasi it's safer. I can go against bigger people. There's no striking, it's grappling. And
Mhm.
I'll be able to still go against people even if they're bigger than me. And that was one thing that really attracted to me, the fact that even if I'm small, I can do it. And I can even excel in it kasi it's a lot more on using your technique rather than strength and power.
I love it. So, Maggie, how difficult of a journey was it to become a world champion? What were the biggest roadblocks that you had to overcome?
Okay, so one big roadblock before was the funding because when I wanted to pursue the world championship, I also had just resigned from my full-time job to pursue
Mhm.
the sport. So I didn't really have money back then, and then also there was no national team yet in 2014, so I had to raise funds for the world championships. And of course, at that time, I wasn't really earning through the sport yet because you really have to invest your time and effort in it before you can start earning. So it's really a difficult start if you want to get to that kind of a position of reaching the world title.
So Maggie, Bea and I, we're very into the whole diet and workout life. So,
Doubt it in the athlete sense, but
but
just
you
trying to be a
know,
very
we're
healthy.
fit. We're fit athletes in our own way. So take us
Yes.
through your diet and training to prep for a big match.
Okay. So, well, diet. I have a partner. If you guys want to check them out, they're called Six Pack Chef. So they actually prepare my meals and they measure the calories and not just the amount of calories but also the macros. I make sure that even if let's say I have to cut weight, sometimes I do, sometimes I have to fight in 45 kilos.
Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah, so I have to cut because I'm not walking weight 45 kilos at this age. So in the not pandemic season, our training is like 2 times a day. We train 6 times a week, sometimes also every day, sometimes 7 times a week, which is every day. So we need to make sure we get proper nutrition.
Yeah. So you mentioned you sometimes train twice a day. How many hour sessions are those? When twice a day?
Um, Minimum of 2 hours siguro.
Wow.
Yeah.
You got an upper training, Bea.
I tried to do 1 hour and a half.
I know, and I'm dead na.
It's a
Okay, so
struggle.
Maggie, I watch Jiu-Jitsu and when I watch MMA, it looks painful. Like I bruise easily, so if I feel like if that happened to me, I'd be black and blue. So what was the worst pain or injury that you experienced in the sport?
The worst. Maybe because I've had so many injuries. I don't even know which one is worse anymore. But I
Yeah.
think because I've had like joint injuries, and joint injuries are painful. Like for example, I had my MCL sprained. MCL is in the knee,
Mm.
the inner part of the knee. I've had that sprained and then like minor tear. I haven't had a fracture from jiu-jitsu. The fracture is from track and field.
Oh.
Surprisingly, yeah, the contact sport. But maybe the worst pain I think was I tore my muscle in my back before. It was really painful. Like I felt like um, it was in a competition because I fell down the wrong way
Mm.
and it was so painful. Like they put me in a stretcher, so
Oh wow.
so I couldn't really stand up or move or anything. Like that's the first time also I rode an ambulance. So
You
Well,
which
say
is an
that like it's the most
experience.
amusing thing.
I
Like,
know
I
first
got an ambulance.
fell the wrong way. I was in a stretcher. So yeah. Um, pero you did MMA also. I know in Jiu-Jitsu there's no striking, diba? I'm just curious. So, nasapa ka na sa mukha, right? I'm
Oh
assuming during
yeah, yeah.
MMA.
In
Masakit,
MMA. Of
right?
course, syempre masakit siya lalo na 'pag sa ilong.
Oh,
But minsan 'pag nasapak ka, lalo kang lalakas. So
oh yeah, because your adrenaline and your anger kinda, diba?
Exactly.
yeah.
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 Okay. So Maggie, what do you think is the most important value that you got when you were learning martial arts?
I think the most important, there's a lot, but I think the first thing I thought of when you asked that question, thing I thought of was humility. Kasi, of course, you have a goal, like for example, the goal of being a world champion. Tapos pag naabot mo na yon, there's a tendency, to put yourself up there. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day kasi, no matter what you achieve, parang meron kang makakaharap that will defeat you, whether it's in training or in another competition, to recognize that you don't get to where you are alone. It's not all you that did the work. Kasi ako personally, yung world titles na yan, it wasn't all me that got me to those titles. Kasi I said earlier, may roadblock of funding. May mga nagpondo para mapunta ako sa World Championship, 'di ba? So, kasi if you have the humility to recognize that, then your attitude towards not just the sport but life will be an attitude of gratitude.
I watched this documentary by Bruce Lee, and like one of his favorite quotes, like my favorite quotes of him was like, "Be like water, my friend." So I know Bruce Lee is like very into like philosophy and then the mental stamina. How do you prepare yourself mentally for a fight or a match or a competition?
Every time I prepare for a competition, it's always a matter of digging deep and like always remembering the reasons why I am doing this. Kasi
Mm.
anytime na I forget why I'm doing this, I get lost in the pressure. So with me, I've developed kasi a really close relationship with God since 2016, and that really is the one that keeps me going. And I always go back to that. I always spend time with Him, spend time with His Word. I wasn't always like this, like in high school. you you
I
won't
was
you
gonna
won't hear
ask.
this. You won't hear this from me. I wasn't
Yeah.
really. I would get maybe not so high grades in CL before.
Don't we? I don't think anyone did. I was. Oh
Nobody
my
studied
god.
the CL, Christian living, for people who don't know what CL is.
But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah. But then as I grew in that relationship with him in 2016, that's always been my anchor and where I always turn to whenever I prepare for competitions. It keeps me like super grounded. And there are times that I don't fight remembering those reasons why I'm doing what I do, and that's when um, not just I don't win, but it's when I don't perform well, because winning is different from performing well.
No, I always had this conception of like idea of Maggie when you were young. Like it's like small but mischievous. Like you're definitely gonna get away with a lot of things.
All in fantasy.
Um, I want to know what you were like in your 20s. Like obviously we've had experience with you when you were younger, but like in your own words, like what were you like
Mhm.
at that time? Yeah.
In my 20s, shucks, early 20s or late 20s.
Or
I mean,
whichever is
most
funnier.
colorful. Oh.
Well, in my 20s, I think I was very, kasi there was a huge shift from before 25 kasi to after 25.
Mm,
Before 25, it was all about goals. But
okay.
after 25, it was all about purpose. So there was a huge shift. Yeah.
What
And I
happened
think
when you were 25 though? Ano
that
nangyari quarter life?
maybe, maybe, kasi that was the time after winning the worlds nung blue belt as a blue belt. That's when I started asking kasi the question of purpose, like what's all this for? Parang I'm winning world titles and I'm up here and achieving the goals, and then what?
Mm.
Diba?
Mm,
What's this
yeah.
for? So that was, I think, what prompted that questioning in 2015.
It wasn't a person or anything. Like I'm always curious on that specific moment. Do you remember?
Well, for one, I think it was divine intervention. like
Okay.
like
I
God
believe
was
in that.
trying to bring me like forward further than
Mm.
pursuing medals. I think he wanted me to pursue something more. Kaya rin nag-start yung fight to protect.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
I guess that's my next question is like you're an advocate of children's protection and as well as women's. Like how can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah.
Because it's
So,
a big picture, kind of. It's a big challenge. I feel like so many women were not taught that in high school or grade school.
yeah, exactly. It's difficult to talk about because it's
Mhm.
considered as a taboo topic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Fight to Protect, it's a movement that aims to fight against child sexual violence through sports.
Mm.
And related to what I just shared earlier, asking the question of purpose in 2015, kasi after I asked that question, I came across an article on CNN, and it was actually about a girl from Mexico, and from the age of 12 to 16 years old, she was raped 43,200 times. And yes,
Oh
and
my
she was a
gosh.
child. She was a child at that time. And it's because she was recruited for child prostitution as a 12-year-old. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
why. And
Mm.
after that, I started researching more about the issue, and I found out how rampant it is here in the Philippines. I think you guys know because of our event before na, especially
Mm.
it happens a lot online, diba? Yung mga
Yep.
kids that are being
Yeah.
sexually abused online in the Philippines. So when I found out how rampant it was here, I had a conversation with a mother
Mm.
of two of the kids we teach jiu-jitsu to in our gym. And it turned out that she wanted to fight for the same thing. And so we really connected. And then the
Yeah.
month after that, somebody gave me a book about purpose. So I'm like, whoa, how did this person know?
Someone is
Right.
definitely interviewed.
Diba?
Yes. Mm-mm.
But then no, if that person didn't know, I never told her. So
Wow.
yung crazier thing was the family I spoke to, they were studying the same book.
Oh, wow. Oh,
Crazy,
So
diba?
that is
no such
surreal.
no such thing as coincidences. So there really is
Diba?
something. Mm,
No such thing. Kaya nga I was saying divine intervention. And yun nga, turns out the family was Christian. They said, share the gospel with me. I got to know the Lord. And I think that was when my life really shifted, like 2015, then 2016. Kaya it became all about purpose. And yung
yeah.
fight to protect, I started it under the nonprofit of that family called
Mm,
Philippines Without Orphans. So,
mm,
yeah, we started just teaching kids jujitsu, and it just kept on growing because of the different opportunities that teaching jujitsu to the kids to opened up to. So, from helping them restore, there were also
mm.
different opportunities to help in the prevention, to help raise funds for the
Yeah.
homes that are caring for the children. So, ayun, it just grew into what it is now.
Was
Yeah.
there one thing that a child talked to you about that was really like, I guess, inspiring for you to keep going?
Yeah, super. Um, like when that question, I remember specifically, we had a goal setting session with the kids. The
Mm.
kids that we first taught jujitsu to. So ito yung first batch namin. And then we had goal setting. We asked, oh, what are your goals and your dreams in jujitsu? So of course their answers were, oh, to be world champion, ganyan, to win medals. Pero there was
Mm,
this one girl, you know what her dream was? Her dream was to share jujitsu with other kids as well. And her dream was to share what helped her so that she herself could help other children who experience similar kinds of trauma. And her answer actually made me realize na grabe, these kids are amazing and God is really working in their hearts. And it made me think beyond just the one community I was helping, and made me think about the other children out there who we're not reaching, we're not tapping, diba? And I think that was one of the main ideas that led us to move the cause forward. But I think what really shocked me was the state of the families here in the Philippines. Kasi
Mm.
grabe, in OSEC, majority of the facilitators or the ones that connect the children with the pedophile perpetrators around the world are majority parents and relatives.
oh yeah.
Crazy.
I
That's
saw
like
that. Mm,
super super heartbreaking for me kasi that's the state of the families here in the
Mm.
Philippines now. And apart from that, in terms of sexual abuse naman, not OSEC, the number one perpetrator is the uncle. Uncle number one, two is neighbor, and three is father. So I'm like, wow, this is
That's a
so sad.
That's a question of, I guess, masculinity and the role of a father or
Hmm.
the man in society. It's
Yes.
scary when you hear that, but yeah, that's a bit shocking. And I don't know yet. Like, I guess this is gonna be like one of those episodes where there's a lot of question marks because
Mm-hmm.
there's more
Yeah.
work
yeah.
that needs to be done, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
Exactly.
So coming from that, I mean, us women, I feel like we always have to be on our guard. I mean,
Hmm.
it's especially when you're walking outside, you kind of don't always feel
yeah.
safe because
Mm.
Yeah.
there are creepy people out there. So what is one self-defense move, Maggie, that all women can do if they ever needed it? What's your
Um,
go-to?
Actually, I just came from a self defense seminar, and it wasn't me that gave that seminar.
Yeah.
And I can't show a self defense move that can really protect you because it takes years for you to be able to master self defense moves.
Mm-hmm.
But I do have a tip which came from Erwin Tagle, who was the one that led the seminar. So I'm
Mm,
not
Wow.
taking his words. I'm not taking his words. But his number one tip was really you have to be hyper aware. Even actually close to paranoid. Sabi niya, better to be paranoid than to be a victim. Alam mo yun? As in like,
yeah.
even kasi nga, sabi niya na he knows kasi the minds of criminals. I guess he's interacted with a lot of criminals in the past. And the way that the criminals work is they always attack those that are not mentally present. Like, for
Mm,
example, if you're walking in the street and you're on your phone, or you're like taking pictures or something, let's say someone who wants to rob you or do something to you knows that you're not mentally present, so they catch you off guard. But if you look like someone that's alert and aware and mentally present, then you won't be the target. So that's one tip. It's not really a self-defense move, but it's more like a self-defense idea, because the best self-defense is you avoiding the situation before it starts. Kasi the actual self-defense move, that's last resort. That's
Yeah.
if like wala ka na talagang choice. You couldn't avoid the situation, and you couldn't run from the situation. Kasi one is prevent it, avoid it. Next is when you get there, run for your life. So buti na lang din nag-track and field ako.
You have all, Maggie,
You
you
have
have
all
the
the
package. You have
ang
the package.
galing.
And
Ang
it's so
galing.
interesting because you're tiny. Most women sometimes they really struggle, diba, with those things. So you're tiny, the track and field, you got all the steps. I'm telling you, write a book,
Yeah,
self-defense.
no, I mean, somebody was telling me before when I was super big pa. He's like, you have to be careful. People, madami na kidnap me. And I was like, they can't carry me. Whatever. I was like over 200 pounds. And I was like, wala, I'm protected. Kaya ko yan.
You're protected.
Yeah, exactly. So, Maggie, Bea, 30 and 30, we are a show a bit about, love and relationships sometimes. So, to you, what makes a good relationship?
um, to me, what makes a good relationship is always thinking of the good of the other before yourself. I think because if both of you think of the good of the other, then you won't have then you won't have a problem. Parang
Yeah.
you're like selflessly loving each other. So I think that would be like a really good relationship, because you won't really expect too much for yourself, but you will expect more for that other person. And if both of you are expecting that way, then it will be like give and take pa rin, but then you're like not hindi niyo uubusin yung isa't isa, because ang priority niyo
Mm.
is the other. I don't know. That's my view of what a good relationship is.
Okay, this is my favorite question. I'm going to be very specific here. What is romantic love?
Oh, oh my. To be
Because
honest,
baka
I'm not.
sabihin mo magmamadre ka na.
No, no, no. Romantic love. Honestly, like I'm not so familiar with romantic love, but as in,
Waiting for you. It's waiting for you,
yeah.
Maggie.
But I think like I I've never really had a boyfriend.
Mm.
Um, I'm still SSB. I did have like a fling in college. That's
What's
that.
SSB? Single since birth. Okay,
Yeah.
SSB.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sorry.
okay.
Yeah. Single since birth, like in official sense, but in an
Yeah,
Yeah.
official sense. But yeah,
a
because
fling.
I
Okay.
yeah a fling. But romantic love, honestly, it's
Or
hard for me.
ideal love. An ideal love for you,
Yeah.
I think, would be better.
Yeah, an ideal love. Well, yun nga, I think the way na I would define the ideal love is the way that I would define the ideal relationship. Like I said earlier, it's like the self-giving love. It's like both of you. I mean, dapat hindi lang isa yung self-giving tas yung isa self-taking lang, di ba?
Taking a take.
Yeah, yeah.
Mga
Dapat
walang hiya.
both. Dapat both, di ba? And
Oo
for me,
naman.
like, kasi yung love for me, it's beyond the romance. It's really about dying to oneself. And kasi nga, the way that Christ demonstrated his love for us, he died for us. So for me, parang if you were in that kind of a relationship, kahit gaano kahirap, pagdadaanan nyo dahil mahal
Mm.
niyo yung isa't isa, because you love each other. So even to the death, alam mo yun?
Yeah.
I
Wow.
guess intense ako.
You are a
Well,
fighter.
hopefully you find someone na ganun rin, fighter
Yeah.
rin.
Fighter.
Okay, last question. This is Shari's favorite question. So use 3 words to describe your life. 1 word for the past, 1 word for the present, and 1 word for the future.
Okay. So for the past, one word would be goals, and you
Mm.
already know why. And
Yeah.
then for the present, one word would be purpose, and you already know why.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then for the future, um, one word would be hope, because I'm just really looking forward um to whatever is set before me. So I have that hope.
Thank you,
Alright.
Maggie. Like those words, like really string around your faith, and you've grown so much. Like since, I guess what we were like in high school.
Yeah.